Thank you, Alicia, for that lovely introduction. And Cathy, a great talk. Enjoyed it very much. So I don't want to start us off on the wrong footing, but I want to push back a little bit. We've been hearing about the emergence of spatial computing, people wearing Google Glass 10 years ago. We've never really seen a big consumer adoption of this technology. When you asked about the Apple Vision Pro, not that many hands went up in terms of levels of excitement. Is it really coming this time, or is it one of those things like autonomous vehicles that futurists talk about, but we're never actually going to see?
Well, so when I speak from experience, not from theory, right? I've been in this industry for a long time, so I've been wanting this to come for a long time, so I guess I do have a vested interest in it working out. But I will say, I don't think Apple's going to let it fail. I don't think everyone's going to be wearing an Apple Vision Pro next year. I'm not saying that. This is version 1. I do think by version 2, version 3, we're going to start to see more people start to buy it, just like they did with the iPhone. Not everyone had an iPhone, the first iPhone, right? Eventually it evolved. I think 5 to 10 years, there will be a post-smartphone future. There will be devices, not one device, it'll be devices that will replace the mobile phone. We will use them in different ways. Is it just Apple? Is it just Meta? No, I think there's going to be a lot of different opportunities. I do think that what AI unlocked last year is part of the key to unlocking this future of these devices that actually help us engage with technology in new ways. So we're going to see and interact with AI in new ways. I almost see XR, extended reality, as the interface for us to be able to engage with AI.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, but let's face it, people, even if the Apple Vision Pro does break through, I think we're still going to want to be coming to places like DLD, come together and have those human experiences. So that human experience is something I know, Frank, that you're working very hard on at BMW. Can you just give us a sense on the landscape in terms of the way that you're thinking about spatial computing at the moment, and how what products you're building, and how you think about it can enhance that kind of user experience?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is that for us, artificial intelligence is a tool that helps us to create new worlds, and also helps us to bring the next generation of cars to also transport this feeling of joy. Because if you're talking about emotional cars, it's also about joy. And me, as the head of BMW M for the sportier cars, it's of course about the ultimate driving machine and the perception you have. And I think over the past decades, it's been all about the way you feel when you drive a car. And if you go to virtual reality, somehow there's a conflict of interest, because you can make simulators better and better, and try to give you that feeling of almost reality. But then, like in the movie The Matrix, there's a small failure in the Matrix, and you feel that failure, and you say, actually, it's not real, and I don't feel well. So something's missing, and what we actually are working on right now is to get a new immersive feeling, a combination of the real thing, being the car, but also virtual reality. So let's say a fusion of realities from a customer perspective. So tech magic meets human-centric, that's as to say. And actually, we made a thing that we called M mixed reality, which is a virtual glasses that you're wearing. It's difficult to explain, but actually, you are in the virtual world playing a game, because gaming is really something that's also providing joy, but actually you're driving in a real car. That was more or less turning the logic around, because the virtual world could never copy the real world. And that's also, I've heard a lot of speeches about artificial intelligence, and they were all like, yes, you can recognize patterns, you can combine information, you can do lots of more things in real time, but what you can never do is copy the real feeling of a human being. And that's why we said, okay, let's just turn it around. Instead of making the perfect simulation model that's still missing the human feeling, we take the human feeling, which actually for BMW is the feeling you have when you drive a car, and put that in the virtual world. So
you've both been talking a lot, and Cathy, you did this during your talk. You had the image of the little girl with the blue whale in Atlanta. Fundamentally, is this a question, Cathy, I'm going to come to you first on this, is this a question about keeping design and technology human-centric at all points, right, when we're encountering this kind of thing?
Definitely, never remove the human from the equation. At the end of the day, the humans are the ones that use technology, right? Who these things are being created by. So one of the reasons when I speak about spatial computing, I always bring the human-to-human communication element, is because we should never forget, yes, it's about new human-computer interaction, and it's about machines, but it's about humans. And to that point, when I look at anything, and I work with a lot of these companies to think through new designs, how do they engage not only with Gen Z, who's like TikTok,
yeah,
but Gen Alpha, who are gamers, who are having these experiences. What happens in these virtual spaces for them is real. This is not different. They don't see a delineation between the virtual world and the physical world. It's just the world. They just live and inhabit different spaces. And I always use an example. My son's first concert was Lil Nas X in Roblox, for example. If for holidays, what did he ask for? He wanted Robux. Many of you have kids, maybe spend B-Bucks or Robux, right? They're spending it on virtual assets in virtual worlds because these things mean things to them. So when you look at Gen Z and Gen Alpha and what's coming, design has to also think about the younger generation and the new consumer that is coming up in this world.
Frank, you talked a little bit previously about the experience, the virtual experience that you've designed. We're going to see a video in a second. Do you just want to describe for everyone what they're going to be watching and what that actually is happening on screen?
Well, it was very difficult to put what I just said in a movie, but actually the movie shows two of our race drivers, the Drift brothers, on Mars. Well, you can also see that as just a movie that's been performed, but actually when they were driving later on, they had their helmets on, and actually they saw they were driving on Mars. So you're sitting in a real car. There are two cars next to each other, and they're drifting. But actually, they don't see the real environment, they see the game.
Right.
It's quite a difficult feeling for a human being to start off with, but actually I can tell you, because I did it myself, the first lap, you think I must be completely crazy because I'm driving in a very fast car, and I'm not seeing the outside environment. So if there's a tree, I'm gonna hit the tree. But obviously there were no trees. And after the first lap, you say, well, actually nothing happened, and it felt quite good because it felt real. Even though it was in the virtual world, the feeling, the perception of driving was actually real. So the second turn, you're getting faster. And when you enter the third turn, you say, what was the time the others did on that track? And then when you take off the helmet, you're more or less a little bit disappointed about the real world that you fall back into, because it's not as flashy as the like Mars that we're going to see on the video. The virtual world actually felt better in driving a real car. But I think that's a little bit what we're going to see in the movie.
I think we're going to see it. If we can roll that video, please. And by the way, you heard it here first. BMW has already been to Mars. They'd like to keep quiet about it while they're building the the manufacturing plant. If we could watch that video, please.
Mission started.
Where is it? There. Found it. Wow. You ready? Are you? 3, 2, 1, go. Yay! Whoa! That was a good one.
Come on, guys.
What is this guy doing here? What the fuck?
Cut? No.
Try that at home. Frank, that's impressive, but tell us, why would people in this audience care? How is that going to change their experience within their automotive lives?
Well, I think what you had on one of your charts was the question, one was your last big aha moment. And I must say, when I drove this, I think it was the biggest aha moment I ever had in my life. Because it was so unexpected.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy to be in a virtual world, but feeling like you're actually really there, which you are, because all the movements are real. And of course, now you have a solution, and the question is, what is the problem that this solution solves? Well, of course, if you're talking about gaming, for gaming, this is the perfect tool, because you can drive with a lot of cars at the same time on different spaces in real time and compete against each other. We do use this also for our driving experience within BMW. As the ultimate driving experience, we do have drift training, safety training, snow, and whatever trainings. And all the people say, if once they've driven this, it's an experience you will never get, because it's not possible in the real world. It's an immersive experience that is really crazy. So for gaming, this is a perfect tool. And we had 1.5 years ago, we had Kaylee as a professional gamer, and she was astonished by this, as everyone who drove that. The second thing is, you can project not only Mars, of course. We do also have motorsports, and if you're racing on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, that track is about 24 kilometers long. If you miss one turn and you want to say, I need to practice this, you need to drive 24 kilometers to do it a second time. And what we can do with this is we project this track actually in the race car, and you can drive with the race car and practice this one turn and braking points, steering points over and over again without having to drive 24 kilometers. And of course, also for safety training, if you want to avoid obstacles, normally we have these red and white striped cones on the road. Actually, if you hit them very hard, it might also damage the car. But we can project, let's say, fences and houses, and even if you slide into them, nothing happens. But it looks real, and you don't feel good, by the way, if you're sliding into them. Because in the game we have on Mars, we also have other ones. You fall off a cliff if you go off the road. Yeah. And actually, everyone that drove was getting accelerated heartbeat because they were afraid of falling off the cliff. I mean, you're on a flat surface; nothing's going to happen. But it is so it feels so real. So what I want to say is there are so many possibilities, sure. and the thing that is so important about it is that immersive experiences where reality meets virtual world has so much potential that we will see this coming in the future. Maybe not with the first or second generation of virtual reality glasses, but in the future this will come also into the car segment. So
we've talked a lot about, and Cathy, I'd love you to comment on this if you can, please. We've talked a lot about gaming. Yeah. Can you just talk a little bit more about, obviously there were a few hands went up, there were a few gamers in the audience, but can you talk a little bit about applications in real world use cases that you think are impressive right now, and how that will develop in the coming years?
Definitely, and I know a lot of people didn't say they were gamers, but how many of you have children or young children or teens in your life that are gamers?
I do.
Right, that's where your money's going, right? It's all going to V-Bucks, Robux, et cetera. So this audience might not be the gamer audience, but there is a huge component of gamers, right? I mean, gaming is being used for everything from empathy training to, I'll give you an example. When I worked at Magic Leap, we partnered with the Dan Marino Foundation to create an experience where people that were on the autism spectrum or had some neural difference would put on the device and practice with a virtual being interviewing, right? These are people that normally socially are very awkward, might have some issues. So they would practice and practice and practice. And yes, they were not practicing with a real human, they were practicing with a virtual being, but it gave them confidence. And a lot of them, it was 70% of the people that this experience eventually ended up getting the job. So that was huge. Empathy, very, very funny data point for any female gamers here. A lot of female gamers, some like first-person shooters like Call of Duty, but not everyone. Female gamers tend to like zombie games because you're actually shooting and killing something that's already dead. So morally, you don't feel as bad. You're like, I'm shooting something that's already dead. It's about to hurt me, right? Instead of shooting a virtual person. So there are things that are starting to happen there. From a medical perspective, there's a lot of work that's been done with children in gaming to take their mind off of, bandages being changed, all sorts of things. I think my biggest advice to anyone here, and the real use case here is connect with your children. My biggest piece of advice, sit down and play Mario Kart with them. Sit down and play Roblox, and you will better understand what their world is about. It's not only about gaming, it's about the physical world as well. But I'm a big fan of engaging with children and learning. And then the biggest use case, I think, right now for children as well is world building. So not just, I feel like a lot of parents gave their kids an iPad and they just let them watch YouTube, right? Or right now it's TikTok. They're all kind of in this this thing where they're just scrolling. With gaming, they're actively playing. They are in the game, right? And many of these gaming platforms, like a Fortnite Creative, like a Roblox, like a Minecraft, allow them to build. These are skills of resilience. So allowing children to not only have gameplay, but build time actually gives them resilience, gives them skills to build things in the future where they will need those skills.
Okay, thank you for the real world examples. And Frank, I think that what we're seeing, obviously, we're talking about kind of quite slow consumer adoption thus far of VR and AR headsets. But I'm interested to get your thoughts, like looking forward, obviously BMW is thinking about, you have such long cycles. How are you thinking about the technologies that are coming down the pike that are really going to change the game for spatial computing? Like, what's coming that you think will have a real significant impact?
Well, I think it's all about connecting, because connectivity is what is actually driving the change. And BMW started more than 20 years ago with connecting cars, and at that time there were discussions like these where actually car experts said, why the heck would you want to connect a car? I mean, it's a car, you drive from A to B, why do you need connectivity? And nowadays we have millions of drivers who use BMW Connected Drive every day to make their drive easier. And so now it's already there. Did we see that coming up like that? Not at that standpoint, but we saw the opportunity and we saw the potential that was inside. And I think it's the same here about this connection of virtual and real worlds. It's more than just bringing the digital world into a car. It's now also bringing the real and virtual worlds from the users and connect them with the car. So it's more a fusion of realities that is going to be taking place in the future. And actually it's already happening. If you look into driver assist systems, yes, we're not at autonomous driving yet, because that is, I think, the most complicated thing, because you need to copy what a human being is able to decide and see. But actually already now you can drive cars without your hands on the wheel. You look over your shoulder to change lanes. That's already possible by connecting, by sensor data fusion, by artificial intelligence. So there's a lot, and pattern recognition. So things are already rolling, and they're accelerating actually. So that's the good thing about that. And it's about improvement, and in some stages there will also be some jumps in technology that will take place.
Sure. I mean, in terms of that acceleration, Cathy, obviously over the past year we've seen, enormous kind of hype cycle, kind of going nuts about large language models and AI. We're through the metaverse hype cycle. That seems to be in the whatever it is, the trough of disappointment right now. How do you think like AI and large language models, the kind of generative tools we're seeing really talked about at the moment, is that going to have a kind of like a significant impact on spatial computing? Is that going to really help us leap forward in this space, do you think?
Maybe not large language models, but I think computer vision and these large vision models are key to that future. And I definitely agree with you on the hype cycle. Like in the tech space, they call me the godmother of the metaverse. and that's like a bad word now. So like my talks are not about the metaverse. Now I went back to my roots in spatial computing, which I think is funny. But I do think, maybe not from a text perspective, from a world building, world modeling perspective, in order for us to get that the true autonomous vehicles that navigating the world with robots, with vehicles, with virtual beings, with holograms, there needs to be that world building, world modeling capability, right? And that's where these large vision models start to be very important in this perception. From an acceleration standpoint, I think we'll continue to see AI in general be incredibly important. I think computer vision, machine learning, are going to start to be terms that a lot of people are going to start to use a lot more often beyond just generative AI. Right now, the concentration is in generative AI and what can be created, with these large language models. But I think it's starting as the conversation matures and we start to understand a little bit more about what's happening, that'll move forward.
And in terms of sort of like the experience, or the user experience, are we still largely still tethered to our phones and our computers? No, you think that the goggles, whatever they are, some kind of glasses, that is going to be
eventually, right? Yeah. Eventually, we won't be. I do believe that we're going to break free from the tyranny. I call it the tyranny of the rectangles in our hands and in our walls. We'll eventually go up to heads up, right, and actually have conversations. It'll be a lot of data, but we'll look in the eyes again. I definitely think that. I call it the Ray-Ban moment before Meta partnered with Ray-Ban. So, for example, these are Meta's new Ray-Ban glasses, which I literally just got before coming over here. But these have multimodal AI.
Talk us through this. Come on, show us.
They're literally new. Look, I haven't even opened them.
Try them on. They look like this to you.
Yeah, well, they're not connected to anything.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, there you go.
All right, go. Looks good.
But they're pretty good looking. I think when we eventually decide to wear these devices and everything, it's going to be because they're fashionable, because they look good on us. I don't think you're going to walk around the street and you're going to see all these people wearing the original Vision Pro, the version 1, walking around. That'll be a little geeky. They'll use it at home. They'll use it for work, etc. You'll see it on people on the plane. Eventually, it's got to be a form factor that is fashionable, that is lightweight, that allows us to do a lot of different things, right? And this is not there yet.
Then that's a mixed reality?
It's multimodal. No, okay. So it has cameras and it's sensing the world. There is some multimodal AI that allows us to, say, what is this, and tells you what it is. It's very early.
And what kind of privacy features does that have? If you're looking at me, do I know if you're recording me?
Yeah, well, supposedly it has a light that will tell you you're recording.
Okay.
That privacy, that's a whole, especially with vision models, you're starting to get into really.
Okay, that's a whole other session next year at DLD.
There you go.
Okay. Frank, we're pretty much out of time. Just give us a sense where you think we're going to be in look, 10 years is too far away, but maybe in 5 years with spatial computing. What would you hope that we were able to see?
Well, actually, of course, for a car company, 5 years is within the planning range.
Yeah, true.
Of course, not if it comes to mixed reality, because that is something you can put on top of that. But what's going to happen with cars is that cars are going to be much, at least for us, they are electronically, they're going to be much more connected, because nowadays cars are still using a lot of different kind of technologies, drivetrain, brakes, gearboxes, and so on. But if we move towards electromobility, where you actually have actuators that have no time delay, and also you can combine all the electronic power into central computing units, which we're actually working on, then you can build a completely different kind of joy of driving. And that's actually what we're working on, and that's something you're going to see within the next 5 years, with or without mixed reality on top of that.
Okay, and then maybe, who knows, 10 years, Mars. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Great session. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.